All right, so for tonight we are gonna be talking about the problem-solving brain. So yeah, all right, let's get started right away. So um, a lot of the reasons for people's unhappiness, or anxiety and stress and worry, mainly comes from the fact that the primary the what do you call this? The primary function of the human brain is not really for what do you call this happiness. The primary function of the human brain is mainly for survival. Uh, in case you didn't already know that, but yeah. So yeah, the primary function of the human brain is for survival. That's why the human brain is constantly looking for, what's wrong. Um, the human brain is constantly looking for problems per se, because yeah, that's its primary function. But yeah, our brain's main function, or yeah, function isn't really for happiness. It's for looking for what's wrong with the environment, you know. And that's where a lot of the anxiety, the worry, and the fear comes from. I think from a lot of people. So yeah. So the reason for all of our unhappiness is, you know, our brains aren't really built for happiness. It's built for mainly for survival. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And this is even more true if your brain is wired to constantly look for problems. And there's nothing wrong with that. I myself, I think I have that brain where I'm constantly looking at my surroundings and constantly looking for problems. I'm constantly looking for what's wrong, essentially. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if it helps you solve problems and keep things organized in a way that will benefit you, then I think overall it's just going to be beneficial. Now, my main point here is that if you want to be more happy with your life, or if people want to be more happy with their life, then they kind of have to rewire or reprogram their brain into focusing more onto the positive side of things, because if you've trained your brain to constantly look on the negative side instead of the positive side, then your brain is going to be really good at looking at the negatives, because that's what our brains do. It constantly looks at the negatives and what's wrong, and how can I fix this, how can I fix that. Yeah, our brains aren't really meant for happiness. We can't see the good things that we have in our life, when in reality we actually have it pretty good. If you have food, if you have a shelter, if you're not cold in the middle of the night, if you have your family, if you have internet, the reason you're able to watch this video right now, then your life isn't really that bad. And it happens to all of us, even rich people. Yeah, even though they're rich, with rich people, for example, with rich people, even though they're rich and they pretty much have everything that they could ever want or need, they're still not happy. And the reason for that is that it's simply our brains are not meant for happiness. Our brains are meant for survival and looking for what's wrong, not what's right. So I think if we want to be more happy with our lives, I think we need to rewire our brains to look for what's right in our lives, or since our brains are so used to always looking at what's wrong with life. So here's an example. If you can think of like so let's just put this as a like a simple example. If you can think of like a one positive, I mean, if you can think of like a one negative thing in your life, like for example, you think of this one negative thing. The counter for that is that you can think of 9 other positive things. So for every one negative thing that you have in your life that you're thinking about, just think about all of the 9 other positive things that you have. I think that's a pretty good what do you call this, practice to have. But yeah, my main point here is that if we want to be more happy with our lives, we need to rewire and reprogram our brains into focusing more on the positive side of things. Yeah, instead of always focusing on the negative aspects of our lives and looking at what's wrong with our lives, then I think we can retrain our brains to look at what's right with our lives, all the good things that we have, essentially. But yeah, that's if you want to be more happy with your life. But don't get me wrong, the brain is very useful for solving problems. I think I appreciate myself and my brain for always focusing on what's wrong, because that part of my brain where it's constantly looking for what's wrong. What's wrong. I think it's helped me so far in solving my own problems in life. That way, that part of your brain is going to be very useful. That logical part of your brain that's constantly looking for problems and trying to solve them, I think can be beneficial. But if you overdo it, I think that's where it's it gets, yeah, you overdo anything really. But yeah, that's the main point. The brain is very useful for solving problems. The problem solving part of your brain, you can rely on that. I have that. But sometimes you gotta look at the bright side. You gotta look at all of the good things that you have, because if all you do is constantly look at your problems, look at what's wrong with your life, then I think it's gonna be a less fulfilling and less happy life, if you know what I mean. But yeah, you gotta somehow balance it out. I think it's all about balance. But yeah, that is pretty much my main point with this video about the problem solving brain. So yeah, there's not gonna be any more cuts with this video. I'm just gonna talk about my own brain. So as for myself, I have this like tendency to, my brain has this tendency to always look for what's wrong. My brain is constantly trying to solve problems, which isn't a bad thing, I think, as long as I don't overdo it. But yeah, I think that part of my brain is very useful for solving problems. But when it comes to everything in life, I think moderation is key, and balance. But yeah, main point, you can rely on your problem solving brain. Was it the prefrontal cortex? But yeah, whichever part of that brain was that's good at problem solving, you can pretty much rely on that to solve your problems. And typically for me, when I have run out of problems to solve, the only thing I can really do is improve. When you run out of problems to solve, all you can really do is improve. So yeah, it only gets better from here.